So good to see everybody here today. The program We Wednesday is one of my favorite offerings that we offer at the USPTO. So really excited about today's program. And it's really fitting that we're doing this program on the 10th anniversary of the office here. So the Rocky Mountain Regional Office opened in 2014. It includes not only Colorado, but Idaho, Kansas, Montana, Nebraska, North Dakota, South Dakota, Utah, and Wyoming. So such an amazing region where so much innovation and entrepreneurship is going on. So really here to celebrate women and try and find ways to lift women and provide programming that we can offer to make sure that we're supporting women in this entire region and across the country. It's something that we've identified not just at the USPTO, but across the Department of Commerce, that there's so many opportunities, so many women out there with great ideas that find solutions to things, and they just need to be connected with mentors. They need to be connected with each other. They need intellectual property to make sure that they're successful. And beyond that, they need funding. So we wanted to make sure that we addressed all of that. When you look at the numbers of women in patenting, I have a new statistic I'm happy to share here today. So in 2016, the percent of women on patents was 12.1%. So women in patenting, 12.1%. That number in 2019 went to 12.8%. So not a huge shift. We do have a report coming out soon that's going to show that in 2023, it went to 14.5%. So yeah. So really excited about that. It's through the work of the office here, through the other offices, and all the great work that the USPTO team has done, that our colleagues across government has done, the Small Business Administration, all of the people that we work with to support entrepreneurship and inventorship, especially for those who have not traditionally participated at the same rates, which women are part of that category. I will say that as part of our focus, we have a Council for Inclusive Innovation, and just this year, we announced a National Inclusive Innovation Strategy. So if you want to learn more about all the great work that's going on in the private sector with the USPTO across government, including a roadmap for how we're going to take that 14.5% and ratchet that right up there with the participation of women in society, that's one place to go to. I will also say that we announced the National Entrepreneurship Strategy this year. That was done with the Economic Development Administration. It's available online. We'll make sure that we provide it. That's a strategy for making sure that we get more women participation in entrepreneurship. We know the statistics are very low in terms of women and funding when it comes to entrepreneurship. And so we sought out as a group with the National Advisory Council on Innovation and Entrepreneurship to figure out where are the stumbling blocks, like why are women not participating at the same rate? And we're working to solve for that. Our focus right now is really on the funding part. So those two documents and strategies go hand in hand with an amazing group of people who are committed to living and breathing those plans until we change the numbers in an incredible way. I will say one statistic I always love quoting relates to the women who participate in patenting when we get out and meet them where they are with pro bono services, so free legal services. So you heard the numbers that I told you. When we get out and meet women where they are, the percent of participation by women is 43%. 43%. So 14.5 is good. If we can get it up to 43% and even higher, even better. And the statistics, they aren't just about women. I know we're focused on women here today, but if you look at the statistics for pro bono, the percent of people who benefit from the pro bono, who are patenting, who identify as African American or Black, is 35%. For those, when we meet people where they are, it's incredible. Those who identify as Hispanic American is 14.5%. So the numbers are just fantastic. We know there are innovators everywhere. We know that kids innovate. I love when I go into schools and these kids come up with these just incredible ideas. And I think, wow, if you could just get the support to bring those ideas to impact. I just want to share one because I know that for those of you with kids, I know one thing on your mind always is just the mental health of our children today. And I was at a base in Rota, Spain, and the kids in the classroom before I came there, it was a military base. The kids were supposed to work on an invention in teams. So they all got into teams of three, and they were presenting their inventions to me, and of course asking, "Do you think I could patent this?" And one of the groups came up with a pocket therapist. So here's kids, 9, 10 years old, thinking about what is my life experience and how could it be better? How can I help my friends? And they come up with a pocket therapist, which the whole idea was you keep it in your pocket and you would look at it. And if you're feeling sad, there'd be a little button with a sad face and you just press the button and it would say something like, "Did you think about calling, your friend Mary today?" It would just, remind you that there's something you could do. Have you thought about talking to a teacher? Have you thought about talking to your therapist? Just an incredible idea. So I'm going to stop there because we've got women here who have incredible ideas and they are bringing their ideas to impact, which is what it's all about. So we've been working hard across our regions of the United States to not only make sure that we get more women, more people who've not traditionally participated in the innovation ecosystem to innovate, and then to make sure they come to our doors and to make sure we see them be successful once they come to our doors. We've been focused on all of that, but also making sure that we provide the entire support system as U.S. government, whether it's through funding, whether it's through Inflation Reduction Act or CHIPS and Science Act, or all the work that we do, Small Business Administration, to make sure that we get those ideas to impact and we lift communities, lift women, and lift those who've not traditionally participated. So as part of that, I'm excited about this programming. Love that these women are giving back. What I'm going to do is I'm going to invite them to come up, and as I call on them, I want them to tell you who they are and what they represent. And then I've got some questions for them that I think are going to be invite very insightful thoughts that you can think about as you're on your journey when it comes to entrepreneurship. So thank you again. Happy 10th year anniversary. Amazing, amazing. Such great work here. Molly could go on and on about all the great work going on here in this area. And just, she quoted some stats to me earlier, just on the number of people that this office is reaching in all the states that I mentioned who have not traditionally participated in the innovation ecosystem. It was a good fraction a little while ago. If you look at the stats from last year, most of the people that they meet with are people who've not traditionally participated in the system. So we're meeting people where they are. We're getting out of our silos. We're still, of course, supporting our traditional stakeholders, the bar associations and all the great organizations that are also there with the same goals in mind. So we're definitely aligned with them, but doing everything we can to get out and meet with more people. So I'm going to invite the panelists to come out, and I'm just so excited for this discussion. Thank you. All right, we're going to start with Rose. Rose, tell us about yourself and how you came up with your product idea, Poplight, and how you brought that idea to fruition.
Should I be holding the microphone?
I think that'd be helpful. We have people in the room. Thank you all for attending in person. We also have a lot of people online, so we just want to make sure they can all hear what you have to say, Rose.
Hi, I'm Rose. I'm the co-creator of Poplight, which is a stick-on USB-C rechargeable wall sconce. If you're like, what does that mean? You can go to thepoplight.com and see what it looks like. But we wanted to make renter-friendly, dorm-friendly, rechargeable wall lighting for people where it's maybe not possible to drill holes in your wall or you just don't want to waste your time doing it. So I created this alongside my wife, Caroline. We were on Shark Tank this past year, season 15, which was really exciting for us. And we just want to make wall lighting easier for everybody. We've been selling Poplight since May, so we're pretty early in our journey, but I'm very excited to be here.
Well, and we all talk about funding. So I know that networks are important. IP is critical. You have to do it, but if you don't get the funding, you don't go anywhere. So I love that you started with Kickstarter, because a lot of times entrepreneurs start with friends and family funding. So if you're friends of somebody like Rose, like you might be hit up for some money, which is great. I've been part of some of those, but tell us about Kickstarter, because that's a unique way of ensuring you get the money in first before you go to manufacturing. And then tell us, because one thing that I've always struggled with when I've thought about ideas is, how do you manufacture? Like, how do you go about even thinking about that and connecting with people who can manufacture your product?
Yeah, I could talk forever about Kickstarter. We learned so much through that process. We had the idea for Poplight 4 years ago, and it was a lot of back and forth of like, hey, this is a cool idea. And at some point we were like, we're actually going to invest time and money into this. I didn't start working on Poplite full time until January, right before Shark Tank. So I had a full-time job while we were pursuing this, and things started to get serious. Filing for our first patent was a big one where you're like, are we about to drop this money? Are we really taking this seriously? Because for a while it was just this, people were like, oh, Rose has this like wall light she's trying to create. How weird is that? So you're kind of doing things on nights and weekends, and then you finally kind of fork over the money to take this next part really seriously. And that was when we were like, I think we should start thinking about crowdfunding. We weren't confident at the time in raising actual capital. I just didn't feel ready to go down that road. And I like the idea of crowdfunding because you build this community of people that truly feel like they've been with you since the beginning. If you were to go on our Instagram, you'd see people comment stuff like, Rose, I love your haircut because it looked different when I saw you 3 years ago on Kickstarter. So you see people feel like they've been with you on this journey, and you build this really tight-knit community of people that really feel like they're invested in your product, not just because they bought it, but because they feel like they've been friends with you. We could talk about whether or not that parasocial relationship is like good or bad on social media, but we decided to do a Kickstarter, which is a huge amount of work and requires a lot of planning. And the hardest part about that is you're so early, you don't actually know what your product's going to cost. You don't know what it's going to cost to acquire a customer. You don't know how much you're really going to spend on marketing because you just haven't done any of that yet. So everything is an estimate. And I have talked to a lot of people who've done Kickstarters where they really underestimated how expensive it would be to produce their product, and they made no money or they lost money on their Kickstarter. So that was a scary idea for us. Things like shipping, how much does it cost to ship your product? We hadn't even designed the packaging at that point. So I had no idea what it was going to cost to ship our product. So we estimated and we tried to be conservative with everything. But we just tried to think about every possible problem we could run into when it was time to actually deliver our product. We were lucky in that because we'd been working on Poplite for so long, we had started the production process. We were ready to go to a manufacturer and make thousands of Poplites around the same time of our Kickstarter. But like the best laid plans, we went to go manufacture and there were all these issues, and then it took us like 4 months longer to get our product to our backers. And I think that that's sort of normal and part of the process. But we just wanted to crowdfund and build this community of people that were excited about Poplite, bought into the whole process. And now we can see the payoff of building that early community. People tell their friends. I get a lot of emails from customers that's like, hey, my mom backed your Kickstarter. I'm her daughter, and now my brother has one, and my little sister's going to college, and she just bought one. So you build this really cool community. But the crowdfunding was really interesting. I just feel lucky. I don't think we could have planned any more, that we happened to price the product in a way that made sense for our funding goals. But manufacturing was, 2 times more expensive than we thought it would be. And I think that's just part of the lesson you learn as you go down that road.
How did you go about manufacturing? Like, where did you start?
Yeah, we found a product that we loved that was designed in a way that we felt like was the quality we wanted for our product, and we figured out who designed that product. And then once we were working with that design team, they were like, hey, this is a factory that we've worked with in the past, and we think they do good work. A lot of lessons learned. There's so many things I know now that I wish I knew then. Your manufacturer and a lot of these partners you have along the way, those are really long-term relationships. And there's a lot of things I wish I knew to ask then that, we're sort of married to our manufacturer now. And we're working to make some changes to that relationship because I think we were just naive going into it. But I found that at every step, the product design team we worked with knew a manufacturing team, and then the manufacturing team knows a packaging design team. So all these people kind of have networks that they work with that they trust. So you're sort of leaning on those networks.
That's great. I have one final question, and it's about, you mentioned Shark Tank a number of times. What did being on Shark Tank teach you about your business? Like, how did that help your business?
Yeah, I think first, I still feel like I'm in survival mode. I don't know if we ever get out of feeling like, I don't know. But Shark Tank was the first moment where we actually paused and were like, how are we doing on these metrics compared to our peers? We were always tracking our costs and paying attention to these KPIs that we really cared about. But Shark Tank was like, you watch the show. I'm sure some of you can probably remember the 4 or 5 questions they always ask on the show. And we could answer those questions. And then we were like, well, what if this was like, an investor meeting where we're trying to raise $1 billion for our tech startup? What kind of questions would they ask us? And could we actually sit down and answer those questions? And it was the first time we really did a deep dive on and kind of got out of survival mode of like, well, where do we want to be in 5 years? Can we talk to the sharks about where we want to be in 5 years? Because I was like, will we still be selling these in 6 hours? Like that was the kind of mindset I had at the time.
That's awesome. And I will say one great thing about the Kickstarter campaign as well is we talk a lot about market research. Like you have an idea, but how do you know it's a good idea? How do you know there's a need for it? So it's a great way to do market research live, right? To have proof of concept. So that's fantastic. Charlotte, I want to talk about the Vesta Pack hydration vest.
Okay.
Who are you? What inspired you to do that?
Who am I? Yeah, she's Carletta. I'm Charlotte. So, did you think she was calling you? Oh, no, okay. Anyways, so hey everybody, I'm Charlotte. Young Bowens. I'm the founder of Conscious Gear. The genesis of my company really came as a result of a health scare. I landed in ER. I didn't even know how I got there. But by the time I left, my doctor was like, look, you got high blood pressure, high cholesterol, you're borderline diabetic, you're morbidly obese, and you're clinically depressed. And it's a wake up moment. You wake up and you realize, like, are you trying to live or are you trying to die? And so I decided I wanted to live. And somebody who had a sedentary lifestyle, somebody who had never been in sports or anything like that, I did the first thing I knew to do, go to the gym. And this young brother taught me how to use a treadmill, and I could go for 2 minutes at 2 miles per hour. And he was a blessing in disguise because he said to me, look, good job. Now come back tomorrow and do it again. Now, little did either of us know that 16 months later, I would cross the finish line of my first 50-mile ultra marathon.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
But I always tell people, the victory is bittersweet because on one hand, I did this unthinkable thing, but that vest I was wearing, woo, it left me with some painful and bloody rug burns. And I was like, if I want to continue to do ultra marathons, I'm gonna need a vest. But none of the brands were selling anything to fit my body. And so that was 2015. Fast forward to 2020, I decided I'm gonna move to Arizona. I'm gonna do more ultra marathons. The pandemic happens, of course, which makes me not do ultra marathons, but makes me think about, should I create a vest? You know what I mean? And so I did. I told people I had no expectations and no plans. I just was in my garage, hacking up some hydration vests and, I don't know. But I was working at Arizona State University and they are very entrepreneurial. So I got into their program, Venture Devils, and which was a lifesaver because it really gave me business fundamentals. They also, as a campus, you get access to researchers, people in the field, experts, CEOs. But I was telling the guys earlier today that I also had access to law school. So law students helped me with my intellectual property, copyright, trademarks, all that kind of stuff, as well as I got to pitch, and then I won some money. And so it was between really ASU, and then REI Embark program, which is REI Co-op. That gave me the opportunity to understand about the outdoor industry because I was in a lot of entrepreneurial programs, but nobody knew about the outdoor industry. So finally getting into a program that really taught me that was really instrumental. And then I'll say the same thing. I want to give a shout out to Target. So I was part of Pro Bono Design, Target Design Pro Bono program. And this is what Target did, y'all. They brought us in and they're like, what do you need right now in your business? And at that point in time, I had spent maybe like $10,000 on manufacturing and none of them could figure out how to make it. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that I would tell them I would want like something big and they would send me, of course, a size 8. And so it was like, you're not getting it. I want to make bigger sizes, not smaller. It was deep. It was, oh my God, it was so funny now. But back then it was not funny. So Target did this. They said, look, what do you want? Tell us whatever it is. Just be honest. What do you need right now? I said, I need a manufacturer then. You need to figure out who's going to make this vest for me. What Target did is reach out to their manufacturing partners and said, look, we support DEI. Do you support DEI? Would you be willing to work with this startup company and help them make their product and go with them through the process? 6 companies came back and said yes. Within a week, I had samples at my front door. I was like, that actually fit. And it was like amazing. And so they really kind of leveled me up in a way that I had been struggling for the last kind of couple of years trying to find that manufacturing piece. So shout out to Target for really leveraging their brand to really help me make those next steps. And so we've been doing okay. We're rolling out in REI finally. And we've been selling internationally, even though we've done no marketing. I mean, I get orders, it's really weird, from Australia, Italy, Netherlands, Canada. I'm like, how do you guys know? But I guess it's a small community of trail runners. And probably for those of us in bigger bodies, we know each other. So we must be spreading the word. So yeah, that's been my journey.
Well, it's such a touching story, and I'm so sorry you had to go through that, but love where you are now. I mean,
Absolutely.
I run marathons, and I have always dreamed to run an ultra marathon. So you are my hero,
Yes.
and I might have to get one of those packs to do it.
Yeah.
I'm not a size 8. But
I wouldn't have a size 8.
so love your story, and the fact that there are so many resources out there, I don't think that people realize that. There's a lot of large companies that do care about DEIA. They want to give back. They have programs. And so people just need to look for them. And I have to say, on the intellectual property side, there are people standing by right now waiting to write your patent application. If you're under-resourced, if you identify in any particular way, there's people who are supporting you almost no matter who you are. So people should know that. They can come to our website and find out about pro bono. And of course, we'll put information on our website. But thank you for mentioning that. And the manufacturing, that's a brilliant story. What about funding? Can you tell us a little bit about how you went about getting funding?
So funding for me, I will share this a little bit before I answer that, is that for the longest time, I would pitch and I would never win anything or do anything. And finally, I was talking to my mentor, and then I told him, like, but you know, I started at 2 minutes, 2 miles per hour. He goes, well, why don't you say that in your pitch? And I was like, hell no, I'm ashamed of that. Like, I really was like embarrassed by that. The moment I started telling that story, I have raised almost $100,000 in non-dilutive capital from just pitching. So
That's yay.
I'm here to say it may be an embarrassing story, but it might be the story that gets you the money that you need to do what you want to do with your business. So.
And then you looked in particular at places that fund women. Is that right? How did you go about that?
Yeah, what I did was really, I used to spend Friday nights with a bottle of wine, looking through the internet, trying to find programs, really. It was like my Friday night thing. I applied for different programs. I looked for different programs, you know, followed up on different programs. And I did look for expressively for women, because a lot of times I got in these programs with all these dudes, no offense to dudes, but no one was really hearing me. They wasn't really understanding what it was I was trying to do. And then when I got into programs with women, then I was being heard and they understood what I was trying to do and they were really trying to help me. So and also I'm on a lot of mailing lists, like Hello Alice, Mogul Millennial, I Fund Women. There's a whole bunch of them. Once you get on the list, you just start getting hundreds and hundreds of emails, and it tells you about hundreds and hundreds of opportunities. And then you just spend Friday night with a glass of wine and you you go through all the emails and you apply for all the programs.
Okay, you heard it. Spend Friday night with a glass of wine. Although you said you used to. I hope you still have some enjoyment on Friday nights.
I don't do that anymore, but I did for several years.
You also worked selling your product at pop-up events online, and then your product was included in USA Today's roundup of top gifts for outdoor enthusiasts. That's a yay. How did that impact your business?
Man, that was, I'll say this about the vending was, vending is important. I tell people, even if you're in ideation, just go ahead and vend and show people your product, because there's nothing. I remember my sister, when I first did my first one, she's like, just do it because it'll be good for you. And I didn't understand what she's saying. She's 10 years younger, so what does she know? But she's actually quite brilliant now. But there's nothing like getting affirmation from people that you don't know that you're doing something right. It's good for your family, your friends, and all the people that know you, your mentors and all that. But when strangers are like, girl, you on to something, then it's like, okay, I guess I can keep doing this. USA Today was a complete, I don't know what happened, how that happened, but it really did. I think that's why I got international sales, because now people all over the world really do know about me. And it was a blessing. I mean, I don't even know how it happened, but I feel blessed, humbled, and honored that I've gotten this national recognition, and it's been good for business.
Fantastic. So Julie, I want to turn to you. You have a background leading business teams at Google and a passion for helping founders and companies grow as an advisor and as an investor. What do you see as the biggest challenge facing female founders?
Well, look, I mean, right now the investing space and getting money is hard, right? First and foremost. And that's not unique to women. Investing dollars are down this year. They're down from last year, which is down from the year before. Women are only getting 2% of venture capital that's coming to founders. That rises a bit when you have a co-founder who's not a woman. But still, it's a difficult investment space. That's first and foremost. I think the other is, founders just need to realize you've got to start somewhere too. And, the question is like, well, how do you start, right? Where do you go? And I think there's a few areas that founders need to really focus on. And one is like, what is my product? What is it what am I selling, right? And is it a problem? You have a solution in search of a problem, right? And that's one side, right? And I think a lot of people stop there and they say, well, I've got this solution, but I don't have a problem that I'm solving. Uber was never in that case, right? Airbnb was never in that situation. These are things that people weren't thinking about in that way. So I think the other side is, are you thinking about something that's sort of brand new in a new space? That's sort of one idea. So like around the product. The other is around who's the team, right? One person having an idea without having a team, very hard to raise money, right? It's very hard to raise money, especially if you're a first-time founder and you're doing it by yourself. Because for somebody giving money, it's really hard to look at that and say, yeah, this seems like something I'm going to invest in. And I think the third is really, what's the plan, right? You can have an amazing idea, and if there's no evidence that you actually can deliver on that, or that there's a market for it. And I've seen hundreds of pitches. And for anyone who's looking for opportunities to get feedback, there are pitch sessions in every single city. Just in the Colorado area, in Denver and Boulder, there's like 1 million cups. You can go every Wednesday, right? And pitch an idea. There's lots and lots and lots of things. And so don't let that be a barrier. But having some idea of getting feedback from an audience to say like, that's a good idea, right? Getting a pitch down that's quick. We use the phrase an elevator pitch, but if you can't succinctly describe what it is that your product does and what your business does quickly, you should keep working on your pitch, because people have a very short attention span. And so they want to get excited about it. And, I love the story of the, 2 minutes on a treadmill and then being able to build that into an amazing business, because that's a great story. And so I love the feedback that you got that actually was like, make that part of your pitch, because it's a hook, right? It makes it really exciting. And so, I think the hardest part is really just coming back to it, getting started. And being succinct about the problem, being succinct about how you're going to solve it and why you're the best person to solve it.
So that's great. So you touched a little bit on what you might want to share with investors to help you secure funding. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that, if you don't mind. Sure.
So, there's many ways to get funding. And I think some of the comments that have been made here are really poignant. I think as founders think about venture capital, that's the one place everyone thinks about starting to get capital. And as I mentioned, that industry right now is also very cautious, right? As we all know what's going on in the financial markets, they're looking at things very differently. They used to sort of, the thing was, it's like, well, they were just throwing money and trying to find places to put it. That's not the case today. But I think there's other avenues. And I recommend there's two other avenues to explore besides venture capital. And one is, we've talked about what I think of as strategic investments or corporate venture capital. These are the companies that are giving away money. I have not seen a company that does not have a division, and I'm talking large organizations, that are not investing in small companies. And these are not tech companies either. They have it as well. Large enterprises, 3M as an example. Companies that are making dental aligners are making investments. Beauty companies, Ulta Beauty has an investment division, just as like examples. So you don't have to think of just sort of tech companies. If you have a product, I think the REI example being another one. And then the third area is really around family offices. And for those of you that's a foreign concept, family offices is the name of basically offices that are managing the money of very wealthy people. And so there are lots of people, generational wealth, or those that have come into a lot of money, who have teams of people that are looking at everything that they have in investments. And one area that they're looking to also spend money on is investing in small companies, startups. So if you know somebody that actually is in You know, for example, somebody who maybe has been in athletic wear or an athlete, those are great avenues as an example to look at if you have a product in that space. So those are, you know, other areas I would also recommend.
So if you're successful in that and you get an investment, what does that mean for your company?
That's a great question. I think that people forget that when you take investment, you're taking a partner. Nobody is giving you money without some sort of expectation. And so as a founder, you have to be very thoughtful about who you partner with, the same way you would for any sort of business partnership. And so your investor is going to have expectations. That might be expectations on how you run your business. That might be expectations of how often you communicate with them, or how you take the direction or advice that they give you. And so I recommend to founders, if you have a funny feeling about a conversation, the answer is no, you are not interested in that investor, right? It needs to be a really good fit, not just that they're willing to give you money, because otherwise you're giving away everything about the way you run your company, even if they're a small investor in terms of ownership of the company. So think very much about that in terms of that investment. So there's, you know, and I think that's one point that's worth asking yourself is, do I need investment? Because people start companies and immediately start thinking, well, I need investors. Maybe you don't, right? That's where that friends and family thing comes in. Although be careful, because your friends and family, you know, if things don't work out, you still want them to be part of your friends and family group.
Yeah, so I'm glad you shared that. One of the things that we're working on as an office and across government is a startup certification where we teach startups how to think about things and how to be safe. And one of the things we're going to include in that is suspicious funding, because, you know, obviously you're talking about you want to find the right people because you're going to be partners, but sometimes people don't have the right motives in mind and they just want to take your idea. So really important to think about your who you're taking money from. Dr. Stewart.
Yes.
You're an Army veteran. Yay. Thank you for your service. By the way, we've leaned in heavily for veterans and the whole military community. So we also do entrepreneurship essentials for the military because it's so important. And people from the military are so good at being entrepreneurs because they're so adept at.
We are.
Yeah, exactly.
We are.
Case in point, Dr. Stewart, case in point. Published author, and you run a nonprofit called Lady Trailblazer that assists adolescent girls to move into the STEM and STEM-related fields. Can you talk about what inspired you to start Lady Trailblazer?
Sure. What really, one day I woke up in the middle of the night. I'll preface this first, then I'll kind of go back to the military experience as well. And Lady Trailblazer was just on my mind. I didn't know what Lady Trailblazer was. I didn't know what it could be. Then I just trademarked it. I trademarked Lady Trailblazer. I didn't know, honestly. I didn't know what Lady Trailblazer was. But, you know, just to kind of, go back a little bit in my military experience, you know, being in a field that's underrepresented by women, underrepresented by, of course, the women of color as well. And in the military is different, you know, serving 21 years and 3 months, you don't go around looking, we need more representation. It's really the military wants you to do your job and do it well and come into work each and every day. And that's what I did. But as I looked towards retirement, after, you know, I went back to school to get my advanced degree, and I started working with the University of Colorado, Denver, really understanding the underrepresentation of women in STEM and really what did that look like. And so I started really developing this study, this qualitative study, wanted to really interview 12 women of what were their experiences. Because what I didn't want to do is really go into this research with my own biases of what I experienced. So after really interviewing all these women and really understanding the findings, I really infused those findings into a program to increase that representation of women. And I will be honest with you, that first count that I did in 2018, it was only 7 girls. It was two were my stepdaughters. One was her cousin. And then it was other parents that I had met. They was like, yeah, we want to be a part of that program. And then it just kind of grew from there. Schools kind of like, hey, what is that program? And then during that time, I didn't even have the name of the program. I just had the name of the actual brand, Lady Trailblazer. Then eventually Girls Persist, I trademarked Girls Persist. And once I really trademarked that brand of that name, girls were like, I love that name. I just want to be a part of that program. I don't know what the program is. I just want to be a part of it. And it really, when I really infused those findings into the program, I started to really understand it because I used my research hat as well, just to kind of understand, observe, get the feedback from not only the community, but also the students as well, just to see how did that look. And a part of that study was really analyzing self-efficacy, really shaping how do girls really believe in themselves, and how do you look at that from early on. And then eventually the program, I wanted to make sure, running a nonprofit is, I always tell people, nonprofit is harder than a for-profit. You don't get a playbook to run a nonprofit. And really running a nonprofit, I wanted to really solve the problem. Because the underrepresentation of women in STEM, how do I really shape a program to really help that? And really, I started developing these learning frameworks, really understanding how do girls learn, working with girls in a small cohort, really understanding what that self-efficacy looked like along the way. And then also understanding that nurturing those abilities along the way was really important for me. And so it just kind of grew from one day waking up, really going through my experiences in the military and understand I want to help. I wanted to do my part. And that's what really kind of led me to today.
Well, and so thank you for your service, not only in the military, but also now. I mean, it's amazing. Other people. So are you doing this by yourself? Do you have collaborations? How do you approach that?
Sure. I had, of course, my board members, but I work with schools as well. And I knew, working in a nonprofit, you can't work in silo. That means you got to have community partners, you got to have parent community, you got to have businesses. And then one of my friends, she's owns a Chick-fil-A. She was like, Carletta, I want to provide meals, whatever I need to do. And then Walmart was providing grants. And then I had neighbors that really started donating from day one to the organization, not really even understanding what I didn't even know what I was doing.
It was the name. It was the name.
Yeah, it was just kind of like the name. They was like, yeah, we want to help you. And really talking about, from the donations to the grants to the schools that I work with, because it started off just like a summer camp and it was outside. I didn't have a building. I didn't have anything. They was like, where are you going to do it? Downtown Castle Rock. We're just going to do it outside. They was like, outside. Yeah, we'll do it outside. And when, it's kind of like in the military, you learn a lot, work ethics. You just keep going. You don't stop. You may not see it materialize today or tomorrow, but you just keep working at it. And then eventually after that, running a camp, a 1-week camp, one of the elementary schools in Castle Rock said, we want that program here. And then now currently it's in 7 different schools, including Cherry Creek High School in Denver as well.
Wow. Yeah. So how can people get involved to promote young women? Like, what are your thoughts on that now being in this space?
Sure. I believe a lot of people think when you try to promote young girls, really shaping those, hey, I'll put them in front of a computer, or I show them how to build bridges. But really early on, when you're working with adolescent girls, one is really building their self-confidence along the way. That's the first thing you have to do. Because those abilities, you can put a girl or a team of girls, they can develop a great project, but does that really promote persistence along the way? And that's what I really wanted to promote in these workshops, to understand that, one, you got to shape that self-confidence along, with these girls and what that really look like, to make sure when they get into those spaces and they are the minority, they don't feel defeated. They feel like this is an opportunity for me to really keep going. And so that's where I want, people to really understand it's not just the tangibles and understanding increasing the representation of women in STEM. It's really saying, 1, I'm showing up to help you. 2, I'm committed to what I'm doing. 3, I know that it's going to take a while, but I'm there. And that's what I look for when it comes to people that work with my organization or people that want to partner. I do look for consistency because I want them to be committed to the work. The work is hard each and every day. I walk in, girls like, they have 100 questions, 1,000 questions, Miss Carletta, but when I see these young girls, one just graduated from STEM School Highlands Ranch, going into University of Colorado Boulder, and she's going into aerospace engineering, and I'm really proud of her.
Yay.
These aren't, And these are the wins. These are the wins. When I see that, it's like, yeah, I want to be this. I want to be this. But you keep pushing, you keep nurturing the environment. And yes, we need the representation of professionals that's going to go into these spaces. But to be honest, yeah, it's not just A, B, C, D, everything's going to happen, but being honest with the young ladies and yeah, it's going to be some challenges you're going to have to overcome. But that's why these workshops are so important for these young girls to understand that, yeah, one, I want you to problem solve. Two, I want you to have the discipline to do it. Three, I want you to be accountable for your actions. Four, I want you to show up each and every workshop and want to do the work. That's what you need to do. And if for anyone that want to get involved with Lady Trailblazer, my website, you know, www.theladytrailblazer.org. You know, we welcome a lot of sponsors. We have a lot of sponsors that really help our organization. For example, the Denver Foundation, the Aloha Fund, Target has assisted as well, Walmart, all these different organizations, then of course individual donors as well that has been committed to the cause. And I'm really appreciative because it's really, one, you got to be a role model in this work. You got to be a role model. You can't just say, oh, I'm just doing the work from 9 to 5. This is like a 24-hour work for me. And I love doing the work. I wouldn't be doing the work if I really didn't enjoy it because I want to see these girls thrive. I feel like giving back to increase that representation of women is very important. And I believe that is a problem. And I believe that's not just my problem. I believe that's everyone's problem. We need to increase that representation and then make sure our young ladies are confident and they're going to those practices and making sure they can go into the industry and feel like, you know what, I can do this and I will.
Well, I love that. I wouldn't be doing the work if I didn't thoroughly enjoy it. With that, I want to invite everybody from the USPTO to line up back here behind the panel because this is our 10th year. So please, come on, get up behind the panel. I want you to see the faces of the people in government, all of them, because this is not, I mean, I had the pleasure, Molly was kind enough to give me the spot to be able to interview this amazing panel today. You gotta see the people who are with you every day, who are supporting all of you, supporting your missions, whether it has to do with funding, whether you've got a company. These are just the people who happen to be in the room today because we're celebrating the 10th anniversary. So I want to thank all of them. If you need help on your journey, these people, I'm sure these great women are here to help you. So is everybody in the back row. You can go to We Wednesday at the USPTO website. This discussion is taped, so you can go listen to this. You can listen to other discussions. You can look at resources. You can find mentors to help you out. It's phenomenal. Know that all of these people, most of them are from our regional offices across the entire country. So look up on our website, find a regional office, find one of these leaders. They're here to help you and help you find the resources on your journey. So thank you all for being here. And let's do a big round of applause to the panelists. You women are phenomenal. You're all my heroes. Just really appreciate all you're doing.